If you're watching this video, chances are you probably already bought one of Rugged Radios' Jeep kits for your JL or JT. And for that, we thank you. We appreciate your business. So to get started today, super easy, we're gonna do an install on this Jeep JL right here. It's gotta be right because this is the boss's. So we're gonna do a GMR45 radio on our Jeep JL JT mount. But keep in mind, it doesn't have to be this radio. It'll accept a multitude of radios. Our GMR45, our dual band radio, you name it, we can go onto this mount. So we're gonna do this mount, super easy, bolts in with one bolt, uses all factory hardware, no cutting, no drilling. Just a few hand tools is all it takes to put everything in. We've got our Jeep side mount for the antenna. We've got our GMRS 0.5 antenna that's gonna go on this baby. It's gonna be super easy. We're gonna have this done in no time at all. Let's get started. All right, so the first thing you're gonna wanna do is pull the little cover off of the bolt that holds the center console together. So just grab a 10mm socket. It spins out real easy. Just make sure and keep that bolt close by because we will be putting that bolt back in once we put the mount in its place. So get that bolt out. As soon as you get it out, we're gonna grab the L-shaped small bracket. So what you're gonna wanna do is slide it in between the outer skin of the center console and make sure that the long leg on it goes between the carpet and the seat track below. Once you get that in, put the bolt back in and then tighten her back up. Doesn't have to be super tight, just remember it's going into a small tab. All right, so once the bolt is tight, make sure you put that cover back on because you won't be able to get to it once the second half of the mount is put on there. So go over to the bench, grab that second part of the mount. It's time to put the U-bracket on there that came with the radio. You can pick any of the holes depending on where you want it. We chose the middle ones here. Put the two supplied bolts onto it. Kind of put it up where you need it. Slide it as far forward if you can so that the passenger side seat won't interfere with the radio. All right, once you get the bolts in there, just keep them kind of loose. Slide it forward to where you want it and then tighten it down into place. Next, you'll grab the radio and insert the radio into the U-bracket. It helps if you put the screws in the radio first, just leave them loose, and then you can just slide it into the U-bracket rather than trying to line it all up, not being able to see very well. The angle of the radio kind of depends on what you want in your vehicle. We kind of have it more angled towards the driver because they're usually the one that is adjusting the radio. However, if you run it straight, the passenger will be able to adjust it as needed easily. All right, once the radio's in place and where you want it, tighten it down and then grab the two bolts, the carriage bolts that go into the first part of the mount that you put in the vehicle. Screw the nuts down onto them. You don't have to go very far, just leave them loose. Put both of them in and then the other part of the mount will slide right between the nut and the bottom of the mount. Push it all the way in, get that bumper off of the second part of the mount up against the side of the console, and then tighten the bolts down. This will keep it from vibrating and that kind of stuff. All right, now that you've got the radio installed, it's time to get access through the firewall. Jeep was kind enough to put a little grommet right beside the master cylinder that you can grab a hold of with a pair of pliers and just pop that plug right out. This is going to get us access to run the coax and the power cables through the firewall and into the cab of your Jeep. So you want to make sure that you have the UHF connector and the power cord that goes to the radio going inside the cab of the Jeep. You'll push these wires clear through. There's about 5 feet of wire there, and it'll go all the way down to the grommet that is on that set of cables. Once you get most of the cable through, you can go onto the inside and pull the rest of it through till the grommet hits the edge. Once it's there, you can push it in, seat it in place, and you're ready to move on to running the coax. Once you have that coax in hand, you'll want to pull that hood seal out a little bit so you can run that cable in through the slot that's already there. Once it's there, just kind of let that coax cable hang. Grab your wrench, your Torx wrench, so you can pull that single bolt out of the cowling. This is where that antenna mount will go. So if you look, there's a neoprene washer that goes between the mount and the body of the vehicle. This just keeps it from keeps your Jeep from getting scratched and that sort of thing with the mount being on there over time. So screw it on in. Just kind of do it by hand to start with. Once you get it up close, it's a little ratchet and you're good to go. It doesn't have to be super tight. It's got a channel on there that keeps it in place. So once the mount's done, pull the NMO nut off, including the little plastic washer, run it through the 3/8 hole, put the washer back on, and then screw the NMO nut back in place. Run it down finger tight, and then use a small, and I repeat, small crescent wrench to just snug it a little bit. About a quarter turn is all you need. What this does is keep that nut tight enough that when you put the antenna on, it'll stay in place when you pull the antenna back off if you ever need to take it off. So next we want to secure that cable, and we use what we call our R-wraps. So it's a Velcro strap that wraps around the cable, and then you can tie it in place. This keeps you from crimping the cable, pinching it, that sort of stuff, which runs into transmit issues later on. So these Velcro straps work fantastic. If you got a little bit extra, just cut it off with a set of side cutters. All right, next thing we need to do is get that power cord from one side of the cowl to the other. So first off, you need to take the two 10mm nuts off of the overflow tank that's attached to the firewall. Super easy to get off. Once you get the nuts off, it'll lift straight up and come out of there. It just needs to move a little bit so we can get to that little tray that the wire harness will fall into. So pull it up like that and just kind of set it aside. The next thing you'll do is take that little tiny screwdriver, and there's little tabs on that wire harness channel. So you just kind of pick them up a little bit and slide that out. Once you do one and you get one done, you'll figure it out. It's fairly easy to do. But you'll want to pull all of those off all the way across the cowling there, so you'll have access to be able to run that power and ground cable right in that channel, so it'll be super clean when it's all closed up. So make sure on this end it gets a little tight. Make sure you shove it all the way to the bottom so it's not getting pinched in there. Once it's in place, you can push that cover back in place and push the tabs together so it holds it secure and keeps all the dirt and debris out of that harness and the channel there. Alright, so once you get them all pushed back in, it's time to put that overflow tank back in place. There's a little dimple on the bottom that you kind of have to get lined up, and then you line up the top two tabs, slide them over the studs, and put the nuts back on and tighten them up. Alright, now that that's done, we can go back inside your Jeep and pull the carpet down so that we can have access to running the cables through the center console from one side to the other. It's fairly easy. They have the little tabs that hold the carpet in place. Pull those free, pull it back, and then there's an opening there that you can run the wires through. Go over to the passenger side, pull that same tab out with the carpet, and kind of reach in there and grab those cables and pull them through to the other side. There'll only be about a foot of cable needed to come out of there to plug into the radio, and that'll be the coax or the antenna cable and the power and ground cable. Once that's done, you can plug the radio in and plug the coax into the radio. Super important. Alright, now that that's done, you'll go back over to the driver's side. Pull that access panel off from underneath the steering wheel. It's just push tabs going in, so if you get a hold of it, it takes a little bit of strength, but you can pull it off. There'll be some excess wire underneath there, the coax and the power cables. We'll use the R-wraps once again, the Velcro straps. So we'll wrap it around the cable first, and then wrap it around that support bar underneath there to keep the cable and stuff from falling down at your feet and causing issues down the road. So this power cable and coax is specifically designed for the JT and JL install, so you shouldn't have any excess cable. So what you want to do is just keep this cable up out of the way and away from any moving parts so it doesn't get chafed or cut or anything like that. Another thing is, if you ever do have any excess coax cable or anything, make sure that you do not coil it up and zip tie it somewhere. What it does is it creates another antenna and will throw your radio out of tune, and it won't transmit very far out. So now, once we've got that all buttoned up, we can put the carpet back in place, shove it back underneath the center console, make everything look all pretty like we were never there before. Now that the carpet's all back in place, let's put that panel back on underneath the dash and go out and get the antenna put on this vehicle. Now we're using a GMRS 0.5 antenna on this. It is tuned specifically for all of the GMRS frequencies and will work fantastic in this application. Alright, now it's time to get this radio hooked up to power. There are extra posts on this Jeep battery just for hooking up accessories. So you want to make sure that you do red to positive and black to negative, and so we don't hurt anything in the process. Get the terminals put on, tighten the nuts down, make sure all the cables are out of the way of everything. They're not going to get pinched or chafed or cut or short out in any way. Alright, so we're all done under the hood of this beautiful Rugged Radio's Golden Eagle Edition JL. So we're going to latch the hood so it doesn't come up later on. And then we're going back inside to put the magic mount on the dash for the hand mic. Super easy install. Peel the red cover off of the adhesive on the back side. Find a good location on your dash. We chose right next to the grab bar. Press it on there. It'll stick really easy. Make sure you clean that with alcohol before you stick it on there. And then your hand mic just sticks right to it. Super easy. Well, now it's time to turn the radio on and then get out on the trail and have some fun. All right. So our communications are all installed in this Jeep JL and it's ready to hit the trail. So remember, if you have any questions at all, give our staff at Rugged Radios a call. We're here to help, no matter what the question is. So I'm Steve Bouchard with Rugged Radios, and I'll see you out on the trail.